Thank you to Biji-biji as well as SDEC for inviting me into this forum. Just a little bit about Tanoti. I started Tanoti with absolutely no business model. The intention was to assume a weaving workshop that was about to disband because they were running out of funding and they were not getting additional funding going forward. So no idea how to run a business at that time or run a business relating to craft at that time. But now, it's our 13th year and, it's pretty interesting. I've been asked to speak about scaling, right? And while we scale, we need to be true to our vision and our mission. And our vision is to see that our intangible cultural heritage is able to survive this current generation so that the next generation will be able to enjoy or benefit from indigenous crafts. What I mean is that if you are wearing batik today, someone is producing batik today. But in 2 generations' time, you will not have the benefit of wearing the batik if nobody produces for you, and batik would then be confined to museums or, as vintage. So we want to be able to preserve now so that the next generation will be able to benefit from this, either as a consumer or as a producer. And our mission, basically, we have to undertake certain missions, right, to achieve our vision. Number one is to nurture and progress artisanal skills so that craft will have the opportunity to survive and thrive. We want to activate rural and remote communities because these are the populations that are rich in indigenous techniques and indigenous crafts, and they still have material culture with them. They still celebrate with crafts. They still go through their daily lives using crafts. We want to be able to catalyze viable careers. If you want to be a graphics designer, be a graphics designer in the crafts industry, things like that around crafts. And we want then crafts to be able to contribute to the economy and to international trade. In fact, we hope that crafts will be able to contribute at least 1% to GDP. So we'll see if that happens. So Tanoti started in 2012. The middle image is our initial group of girls with 11 weavers. And today we are basically engaged with so many communities throughout Sarawak, all the way from Limbang Lawas right down to Lundu. So from the western to the eastern tips of Sarawak. It is very humbling that we are able to do so, and very, very humbling indeed that there are people everywhere that need us to work with them or need our services that we offer. So what happens when you have a crafts business? I'd like to talk about the traditional model of a crafts business. A crafts business is basically making crafts product, marketing the product, and selling them. So it's production, marketing, and sales of traditional crafts products. However, for the first 8 years of our lives, or first 7 years of our lives, we have been loss making. And we know the nature of our work was very, very tough, right? Number one, handcrafted items by their nature have low volume. A person will take 1 day to make one product. So it's very difficult to scale. Resources are becoming more and more scarce. So things like rattan, a fiber like rattan, bemban, bamboo, all these are harvested from the forest, and we don't have enough supply in the forest to be able to scale. Furthermore, industry participants are dwindling. We are expecting artisans or craft people who do craft to be able to have further opportunities, and the supplier base is likely to contract in the future. So how do we work around this, and how do we still achieve our vision and our mission? So rather than just a traditional crafts business making crafts product, Tanoti now has 3 business pillars. Number 1, making crafts product. Number 2, making services or delivering services relating to crafts. Things like workshop, craft tourism, where we bring tourists to crafts communities where they immerse themselves in the life and the culture of the crafts people. And then thirdly, crafts content, where we want to deliver high quality content or entertainment relating to crafts. So with 3 business divisions, we managed to scale and we managed to increase our revenue right now almost 3-fold. So what are our challenges when we scale? And what do we want, right? So now that we're scaling, we know that this recipe is a recipe that will be able to help us achieve our vision and our mission and keep us sustainably alive, financially sustainable. So I have 3 asks, if that's possible. The first one, we want the government to acknowledge the work of social enterprises, not to give social enterprises tax incentives, but give tax incentives to people who buy the products and services of social enterprises. So if a taxpayer has an incentive to buy computers every year, why can't that tax incentive also extend to products and services of local Malaysian social enterprises? So if we could get that, I think the buyer market will have expanded. Secondly, it's a very lonely world. Thank you for all the ecosystem players here, but it's still a very lonely world if you're a founder of a social enterprise. Coaching and mentoring is very important. I think it's important that the government acknowledges what we do and helps us by giving coaching and mentoring. And also access to capital for expansion. So a lot of impact funds, other than Yasan Hasana, so thank you very much, Stanley, for being here. But most impact funds have very large bite sizes, and very rarely are they interested in social impact. A lot of them are interested in environmental impact or food security, but very rarely in social. So if we could have access to this capital, it would be very interesting for us to be able to grow and expand. While we scale at Tanoti and we have learned the recipe of scaling, it would be very nice if we could be supported by these 3 items.
Thank you so much, Dato Jacqueline. Very insightful session, and I'm sure people will be submitting their questions. In the meantime, I think that something that you brought up is, that it's been a lonely journey, and that's something that we've also heard from SDEC. And so I think it really aligns nicely with one of our goals under the SEDAR program, which is to build a stronger ecosystem, to build up the community, to build relationships within the ecosystem, both on the founder side as well as those wanting to support founders like yourself. And so that's one of the things we'll be tackling the bootcamp is how do we build stronger peer support networks so that founders like yourself or ecosystem players don't have to journey alone, that people can help each other out. Okay, so we have some questions coming in. Let's see. So one of the questions is, with much of the world heading towards a much more technology-heavy future, how can technology be used to address challenges like low production volumes or marketing for handcrafted products in the SE sector?
Technology cannot play a part in producing craft, that's for sure, because the essence of crafts is that you are applying indigenous knowledge, which has very little technology associated with them. But every other thing, yes, we would require, and we do. We do employ technology. We have systems. We have an artisan management system with us. And we use a lot of technology for our other pillars, our content pillars, as well as our services pillar.
Thank you for answering the question. We have another question. You've mentioned that mentorship would be helpful. Somebody would like to know, or would like for you to describe in more detail what sort of mentorship or what area or category of mentorship would be helpful.
I don't have the benefit of a board of advisors, so if we were to develop a new division or, a certain path, in this business, it's very difficult to get feedback and, very candid advice. So I think strategy would be the most important. Yeah, tricks of the trade.
Okay. Well, maybe some of the organizations in this session might be able to help with that.
Yeah.
We have another question. What was the best or most impactful corporate partnership for Tanoti, and how did it come about?
I think the most impactful partnership is with Yayasan Hasana. It's always important to find partners that have values aligned with yours. And, if the values are misaligned, it is very difficult to work together, and it's very difficult to make the jigsaw puzzle fit. So Yayasan Hasana had thrust towards preserving indigenous textiles or traditional textiles. And this was exactly what we had. So it was a very fantastic time and place. And we had ideas, and it was very nice to see that there were organizations such as Yayasan Hasana who were very aligned in making these ideas reality, such as the Gold Threads Awards. So Tanoti's greatest achievement to date is the Hasana Gold Threads Awards, because we had spotlighted artisans who were doing work for decades without recognition. Not only was it a steep learning curve for us at Tanoti, but I think it moved the needle in the entire industry. But it's always very important to find organizations who are completely aligned.
That's great. Well, we have Yayasan Hasana here with us today, so people can ask them lots of follow-up questions about that. On the topic of impact, so you were saying that programs like Hasana or events like Hasana Threads were very impactful. We had multiple questions about measurement of impact. So how do you, as a social enterprise, what metrics are you using, or what KPIs are you using to measure success as a social enterprise? And so I think the questions come from people that want to see how they can also be measuring the impact of the social enterprises that they're supporting.
I think for us, we have a system that measures money that we pay out to artisans. So how we measure impact is the amount of money we pay out to artisans. That is a very direct measurement. The indirect ones are very interesting, like enrollment in primary one in rural schools. Enrollment of primary one students in rural schools have spiked. You don't know whether it's attributable to us, but we did deliver a lot of income to their mothers, last year, the year before. So, but effectively, it is money paid out. We don't really do surveys. We engage with them, and everything is by just communicating with them, communing with them, basically. Yeah. How do the rest of you measure impact? I don't know.
Well, that is going to be one of our topics in the bootcamp, actually, because we had a lot of interest from those who registered for today's roundtable in how do we measure impact? How do we, what measures can we use to make sure that we are actually effective in delivering impact in the long term? So we will be covering that in a future program. I guess I would open this question to the floor as well, but we have a question saying that entrepreneurship, we often hear that it's a lonely journey. How can the ecosystem address this meaningfully?
I think ecosystem leaders here should be able to contribute. But to me, I think entrepreneurship takes a lot of time. You know, I don't know if the rest of you agree with me. It's late nights, a lot of traveling alone, and it's very difficult to be social. So if I were to say it's nice to have like CSAT or whatever organize all these events, the reality is it's very difficult also to attend these events.
Mm.
Yeah. So I don't know. Group chat, but even then, I don't know.
Okay, so I guess that's something for us to workshop then in the boot camp is, as ecosystem players, maybe brainstorming other ways that we can support entrepreneurs. Okay, so we have a question about social enterprise scaling programs. How can social enterprise scaling programs help to develop a more sustainable value chain for artisan products from raw material sourcing all the way to end market delivery?
I don't know. We need a mentor for this. I really don't know. I've given up on not given up, but I realized that just producing products is a very risky business because what are we doing here? Are we contributing to the deterioration of our forest quality if we scale? Are we confining artisans into in the villages and not being able to build their capacity if we do that? So I'm a bit conflicted about scaling in terms of the product. But as we are developing product service and product content. So the intention is not to contribute to the deterioration of our forests. I don't know how to scale crafts company otherwise.
Mm, okay. Well, you all very last minute with your questions. I have 2 minutes
Yeah.
left, and now
But
you're sending
yeah,
in all your
so
questions.
the thing about an artisan is that she is sitting down and making weaving, right? She's sitting down and making weaving. So if you were to scale, you are effectively telling this artisan, make 500 pieces, and yes, I want you to sit down and just weave. To me, I feel there's an injustice in this. We want to be able to develop careers, allow them to progress in their lives, and we should not be making anyone sit down to produce 500 pieces
Mm,
just so that we want to scale. Yeah.
right. Okay. Final question. We have 1 minute left. So Ryan is talking about scaling, and he mentions what you brought up about the government providing support by incentivizing people to buy from social enterprise. He's asking about the private sector using SEs as a long-term partner for activities that they may not want to run themselves. So Ryan's question is, would private sector support buyer mentorship, even if it's a different industry? Or what would anchor interest in those partnerships aside from the usual sort of CSR, PR kind of motivation? What do you think might motivate the private sector?
It depends on what carrot you want to uh, give to this private sector mentor, right? I don't know. I think for a founder of a social enterprise, you need to have a C-suite at least mentor you. I don't know. Buy them a glass of wine. I don't know. We could always provide um, a tea talk or whatever to the corporation in exchange for one-on-one time uh, with the C-suite. There are always ways to cut a deal.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I think, we're out of time, but I think we gained a lot from your insights on what the challenges are with scaling a social enterprise, particularly like you mentioned when you're looking at balancing the desire to scale and the impact that can be gained with that, with also thinking about the careers of the people that are producing the crafts and the resources that are being used, and like you said, not wanting to deplete the forest in trying to preserve the craft. So I think there's a lot for our participants to think about there and take into consideration as they hopefully come up with their own initiatives to support social enterprises like yours. But thank you so much, Dr. Jacqueline, for sharing your time and your experience with us.